Braeton Seventh-day Adventist Church, under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, is committed to leading others to become disciples of Christ through the proclamation of the three angels' message and the promotion of unity and quality of life for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the commencement of the Braeton Leadership Symposium.
He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. This is a portion of God's holy words.
Oh, great God and Father, your people gather here in this fashion this evening, seeking to develop the skills that will make us more relevant in a dynamic society. Father, this setting also affords us the opportunity to make a significant impact on our society. I therefore invite your divine presence among us at this time. Lord, I ask in a special way that you will grant the presenters, the moderators, the panel members clarity of thought. You may grant them clarity of speech. And I pray, Lord, that as we sit here this evening, we may all be better edified, and we may take something away from this place that we can share with those who we come in contact with. Lord, I ask that all may be done to your name's honor and glory, is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Guest speaker, Dr. Herbert Thompson, Pastor Everett Brown, President of Central Jamaica Conference, other members of the clergy, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Braeton and Hellshire Seventh-day Adventist churches, it gives me great pleasure to extend hearty welcome to all of you who have joined us for our Leadership Symposium. Since 2006, our churches have engaged into a special program of leadership development. And today we are happy to extend this program to members of the wider community. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Jamaica places great emphasis on leadership development. Through formal and informal training, we endeavor to integrate moral and ethical values with cutting-edge leadership instruction. We understand that it is important to have moral and ethical values, but we also recognize that authentic and effective leadership in the 21st century demands more than just moral and ethical values. Along with these indispensable qualities of good spiritual leadership, we recognize the need for effective leadership. And so today we have endeavored to look at how we can help to enhance the leadership skills of members of our church, members of our community, and also those who run businesses, especially in our surrounding area. We want to let you know that the church is delighted to partnership with you today in helping to bring to you important, relevant information about how to be better at what you do in this very important task of leading out in various aspects of our society. Our Leadership Symposium could not have been planned and executed without a superb team of workers. And today, I want to use this opportunity to laud my members, my team members, who have given beyond the call of duty to prepare this place, to make all things ready so that you can come and benefit from this training exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once, welcome twice. I now invite our distinguished president of Central Jamaica Conference, Pastor Herbert Brown, to bring greetings. Pastor Brown.
Pastor Jeff Jefferson and Sister Jefferson, pastor of the Braeton and the Herbert Seventh-day Adventist churches, Dr. Herbert Thompson, president of Northern Caribbean University, guest presenter, pastors, elders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters. I am impressed. I walked in what I'm accustomed to walking into, the main sanctuary of the Braeton Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I was completely blown away. You have created what appears to be an environment that is conducive for learning, for inspiration, and certainly for us having a wonderful evening. This is a wonderful set. And my only disappointment is that we will have to change this for Sabbath. I wish, Pastor Jefferson, that on Sabbath we could have church, the sanctuary, looking like this. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book, Courageous Leadership, in speaking of faith-based organizations such as the church, suggests that the church is indeed the hope of the world. And I believe that he is right, because there is indeed a vacuum in terms of leadership in the corporate world, in the political halls and corridors of the world, and to a certain extent in the church. But I believe that within the church, we ought to find men and women of honesty and integrity, men and women who will be able to influence people positively in the right direction. And so, Pastor Jefferson, I want to congratulate you and congratulate the elders and members of the Braeton Church for initiating or for this leadership symposium. As I greet you, it is my hope and trust that the skills and the information that will be transmitted this evening, that those of us who are at the forefront in terms of encouraging men and women to change their behavior, those of us who are involved in not only sharing the gospel, but impacting men and women in the wider society, will arm ourselves with these skills to transform lives, transform community, and by extension, transform this nation of ours. I bring you greetings from the administration, the directors, and the workers of the Central Jamaica Conference, and wish you success in this leadership symposium. Thank you.
I have heard it being said that a people will not rise higher than its leaders. If this is true, and in many respects I believe it is so, then what we need, one of the greatest needs in our society today, is a need for men and women of competence. Not only competence, but of integrity. In this session, we will be looking at this vital component for successful leadership, building leadership competence. Building leadership competence. To present on this topic is one of utmost competence and integrity, one whose name I believe has become a household name in Jamaica. I speak of Dr. Herbert Thompson. Dr. Herbert Thompson, CD, JP, is president of Northern Caribbean University, where he has served for the past 18 years. He is the author and publisher of 2 books, Rural Gumption and Rebuilding the Walls. Dr. Thompson has had his preparation at the Northern Caribbean University, La Sierra University, Loma Linda University, and the University of the West Indies. He is married. The union has produced 2 daughters. And Dr. Thompson is a motivational speaker, as well as one who has made vital contribution in our society. He serves as commissioner on the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, director of the Bank of Nova Scotia, and Scotia Building Society, as well as a member of the University Council of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Herbert Thompson.
Pastor Jefferson, my distinguished colleagues, President of the Central Jamaica Conference, business persons, millionaires, aspiring millionaires. I need you to know that I consider this one of the better assignments which I have been given in recent times, that of coming to Braeton to share with the church community and the wider community a few points on building leadership competence. A privilege for me because every time I get a chance to do something of this nature, I leave impacted, motivated, learning a few things, which few things help me as I go back to my place of work and to the venues to which I have assignments and to be better able to function. One of the things I will talk about in my presentation this afternoon is the fact that a leader must be able to respond to emergencies without panicking. If everybody falls apart, that is not the privilege of the leader. And as if to teach me a lesson, my driver and I were just a few chains from the Esso gas station down the road, and our right front tire of my Prado just lost air. It has never happened before. So we drove into the Esso station, and I asked my driver, where is the pump? And they said, we don't have any air. So we came up to the Texaco station, because clearly if one station does, and I hope, by the way, the proprietors of those stations are not in here. So we drove up to the next station and asked, where might we get some air, because I need to get to this appointment. And that one says that, no, we don't have any air either. You will have to go somewhere else, up to the Petcom station. So that's the one up there. We drove up to the Petcom station, but they had air, but nobody to fix the tire. I'm saying all of that to say that in an effort to remain calm, I've been in touch with my driver, and in the van was my computer. And the thumb drive which I brought is loaded with viruses, so it couldn't be used, so we had to send to find him. But when we went to find him, we couldn't find him because he went to a tire shop farther than we thought. Interesting. However, such are the challenges and responsibilities of a person in a position of leadership. Some years ago, somebody told me about an insurance manager who was talking to his salespersons, abusing and berating them about the fact that nobody in the sales group had come up to par for the last 3 months. Amongst the persons who were in his sales team was a former football player. Not soccer, football. It was in the United States. when he went around the table and told all of them that nobody had come up to scratch and that the entire team needed to be dismissed, he picked out the football player and said, by the way, you have been a professional football player before you came to this job. What is it that would happen in a case like this? The football player looked at him and said, well, sir, I have to be honest with you. In professional football, when the team fails, it is the coach who gets fired. True for football, true for basketball, true for baseball. Well, ought to be true for cricket. Sometimes we take a little long. But the fact is that aspects of blame that we seem to want to pass on to other persons belong with the person in charge. And that is who the leader is. And we better get used to the fact that the buck cannot always be passed. In building leadership competence, there is, by definition, what I'd like you to take a good note of. The key to success in any endeavor is the ability to lead others successfully. And to be very frank with you, if you are at a place where persons within your led team, persons for whom you have responsibility, continue to outshine you, you probably shouldn't feel threatened, but you should be prompted to step up to the next rung, because part of the responsibility of leadership is the satisfaction of feeling that you are competent enough to lead. Now, unfortunately, what some people do, some leaders, is that once they find within their ranks one or two persons who would dare to be as good as they are or better, they banish them. In some aspects of the business world, we say they send them to Siberia, which is a very unfortunate thing. Because really, if somebody is performing and outperforming me, one of the things that it will drive me to do is to come up to boards, after all. Leadership competencies are a set of skills. In other words, the leader must be on the cutting edge. There's no excuse. Attributes and behaviors that are directly related to successful, effective performance. And we must not be misled into thinking that in matters religious and in matters spiritual, leadership competence and being on the cutting edge are not critically important. I once heard somebody say, I don't want to go to church on a Sabbath where my pastor, of all preachers, puts me to sleep. For if a local elder, with respect, can get away with that as a matter of practice, my pastor doesn't have that luxury. For it is to my pastor whom I look, it is to him that I look, that ultimately, when I'm not being spiritually effectively fed in church from the pulpit, my pastor, when it is the pastor's day, should bring out all of us and make us feel that we have been nurtured and spiritually satisfied. And I say amen to that. The focus of this seminar and this brief presentation will look at a number of things: core competencies, innovation competencies, execution competencies, transformation competencies. And then I will look at the qualities of a leader, and then I will also look at some leadership imperatives. Being an effective leader, being a successful leader, being a respected leader is knowing how to do a job and to do the job well. Accomplishing the task at hand. You can teach people to do a thing. Making sure that the job is done is the responsibility of a manager. But inspiring others to do better work is the accomplishment of a leader. To be very frank with you, there are some people who are teachers, but not leaders. There are some people in positions of responsibility who are good managers. They can collate the facts. They can see to the balancing of the books. They can see that people come to work on time. But it takes a leader to inspire in the team the thrust and the gut to want to just move forward and get the thing done. And trust me, leadership is something that has got to be singled out as being different from those who teach and those who manage, etc., etc., etc. And leadership is part of what we want to stress this evening. Let me talk about some core competencies. Some of the core competencies of a leader. What are some of the things that you look for when you look for a person who is going to be an effective leader? When you go back to your place of work, for the people for whom you have responsibility, what are some of the things that you will want to ensure? One, effective communication. Very, very critical. To be very frank with you, we have in some business houses and in some places of work some means of communication that don't match up. You know, some people pass it by word of mouth. Some people put up a little notice at a place on a notice board where nobody can see it. Some people mumble something under their breath, you know, and if you didn't hear it, too bad for you. Effective communication. Number two, teamwork. Come on, you can't get this done. A leader has to believe in the team. May I interject that I was in Runaway Bay on Friday. I was speaking to the Police Officers Association annual conference, and the Commissioner of Police was there, the State Minister in National Security, Arthur Williams, Peter Phillips, the opposition spokesman, and they wanted me to say what it is that was happening to the strategic report. The government asked us to do a strategic analysis of the Jamaica Constabulary Force and bring them a report so that the force can be transformed. In reporting to them, and I'm assuming that in this group there must at least be one or two police officers, that in reporting to them that we're putting the things together in order to submit a report in the next few days to the government and to the Commission of Police, I said to them, in addition to the report that I will submit, because I'm the chairman of that panel, I want you to know that you have asked me to come here on Friday to speak about strategic planning. Please understand, I told them, that the strategic plan goes nowhere without the people. There are too many people who have, and by the way, you know, people in church and out of church, we have some very sophisticated outlined plans, but we cannot take our people with us. And until we do, those plans aren't going anywhere. I don't care how sophisticated they look. Number three, creative problem solving. In other words, the ability to generate alternative approaches. If one thing is not working, we move and find another thing, and a leader has to provide that. Don't everybody just throw their arms up in the air and say, oh no, we have failed. You don't have that luxury. You don't have that. You have to find enough. Interpersonal skills. Treating the people on your team with dignity and respect. Making them feel valued and valuable. Critical. The leader must be self-directed, which is to say, being able to establish goals and deliverables and timelines. In other words, there are too many of us in our society who we behave like contractors who underbid for jobs, and when they get the job, then they tell you that there is going to be an overrun. Well, you know, I believe there ought to be a limit on an overrun, or you should give the job to somebody else. If you say you can do it, we must deliver on time. We must establish goals, but they must be achievable within the timelines. A leader must be flexible. And there must be an element of professionalism that pervades the leader's attitude and behavior. You must be professional, and you must set examples. Innovation competencies include the fact that the leader creates and articulates compelling vision for the future. Let me tell you something. I have always felt that any worker who has 5 minutes with the leader, with the pastor, with the president, should be able in those 5 minutes to get a grasp of where the organization is going. Sometimes that's all the time you have, but you must be able to sell the concept, because in the final analysis, while some people are wishing, the leader must be dreaming, and the leader must dream big, and you must be able to package that dream and sell it so that people, the leader must be a continuous learner. Anybody who knows enough, and heaven forbid knows too much, can't, if there is no quest for knowledge, the leader becomes stagnant. And by the way, don't be fooled. What the leader learns, the leader can learn from the people within the same organization. You don't always have to bring in some big time expert with some big name to come on, people, come on. The leader must have an intellectual curiosity. In other words, I want to be better at what I do. And I want to be intellectual. I want to be top of my heap. I want to be head in my field. And don't worry about those people who tell you that, you're just being worldly and you're going after worldly things. May I remind you, we live here. You know what, I don't want to go. The leader leads and supports development of others. When we were about to become the university 10 years before, we were sending people away to get doctorates and master's degrees and doctorates, etc., so that people could become more competent in the academic arena, so that when we were to apply to become the university from being a college, we would have not only a physical plant that looked like a university, but people. Come on, you've got to build people. The building of people is extremely critical. If I were to ask you to make a distinction between financial resources, material resources, and human resources, I would have to say that you and I are in agreement that your human resources are the most critical. Because I've been to places where I've seen a lot of money and I've seen a lot of things, but the people who were in the organization didn't necessarily have the training. And I want to make certain that when I accuse people of not having the competence, I want to make certain that I say that sometimes people don't have the competence because the requisite training was not given them. You can't expect me to rise to a certain level of competence if you didn't spend any money sending me to a seminar, you didn't send me to a workshop, you didn't send me to a conference, you didn't send me to do continuing education, etc. Come on, it really doesn't work that way. You've got to do something in order to get your people, on the cutting edge. I will interject here that the task force that has just about completed looking at restructuring the police force in Jamaica. And by the way, for those of you who can't appreciate the challenge, this is one of the more serious challenges that we have. It is not that we feel that if you better the police force, everything automatically will be better. But we feel that that is a good place to start. There were police experts on our panel of 8, one from Scotland Yard, one from South Africa, one from the United States, and one from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and 4 of us from Jamaica. They asked me to chair. Listen to what some of my overseas colleagues said. They said, well, if you really want a better police force, what I think you should do is fire everybody and just start all over. Well, you know, because I was the leader there, I said to the man from Scotland Yard, I said, with respect, please understand a few things. One, I live here. When this review is over and you fly back to London, I live here. Number two, if in a small country like Jamaica, you have a police force of 11,000 people and you get up and fire all of them, well, the chances are it will serve as such a demotivation that you will never be able to build it back. You don't have to destroy people to build them up. You don't have to disband and malign and abuse people and throw everything out the window before you can get something going. And I just said to them, look, with the greatest of respect, we're not going to go that route. What you're likely to see in the report that we're doing is there is going to be a report that is balanced. I am taking responsibility for leadership of that team, but you're going to see a police force that will no longer be called a force, because policing is a service. And the quicker we learn that, that's what it's going to be. And don't make anybody fool you. These may seem cosmetic, but I'm divulging to you that even the very uniform, do you know how thick and hot those things are? Those things were given to our men and women 140 years ago by our owners, our slave owners. That's why we did that, and we're changing all of that. We're making our people look dignified and feel comfortable, so that people will look to that police service as an option for employment like any other. And that's where we're going. But you will wait until you see it published. The leader must be one who has developed intellect and acumen, the ability to identify, define, and evaluate issues. And finally, on this page, I want to just talk about entrepreneurship. I don't care what you're running. If you don't have any sense of business, if you don't have any business sense, if you don't know how to take little and make it much, if you don't have any drive to do that, maybe you're not the person for the job at this time. Execution competencies. There must be a drive for excellence. Setting high standards is one of the hallmarks of a good leader. And by the way, people, please understand that I am aware that there are some people who refuse to address the matter of high standards. I have to tell you, within my own university, the Northern Caribbean University, sometimes I have to talk to some of the people and say to them, I wonder if you understand that there are thousands of people looking to us to see that what we do is the highest possible and at the top. When I hear people go around and talk about higher than the highest human thoughts can reach our God's ideas for his children, fine. And the Seventh-day Adventists, we must be the head and not the tail, good. But I hope you understand that it means that these must be translated and carried into the way we do business. And by the way, our books must balance. I don't want to get into that. The leader takes personal ownership and accountability for results. Whenever things don't work out, as the football player said, it is the coach who takes the rap. You can't, by the way, you're not perceived as a good leader if every time something fails in your business, you find some people in the organization to blame. You're not doing good. Don't make anybody fool you. Get over that. The leader must act decisively. It does not become paralyzed in the face of complexing or conflicting situations and viewpoints. I once read a quotation that says, The reason why a ship has one rudder is that you can't have more than one person steering a ship. If you have that, what you will have is chaos. But please understand that this comes down to leadership in church, leadership in family. Am I upsetting somebody? Principalship of school. Somebody has got to be in charge. It can't be several people. The leader must be one person. The leader, however, must learn how to share responsibilities. But be sure that there are some decisions that you will have to take, that you must take on your own, for when there is failure, they're coming to get you. And if they haven't yet, they soon will. Transformational competences. I'm running down, and we'll come to an end soon. Appropriate use of influence. Through persuasion and rapport building, influences others to accept a point of view or take a course of action. To be very frank with you, it is weak leadership who, after we have come out of a negotiation, can say that we have made some progress. And sometimes you sit around the table with some people in your own company, and you're negotiating with them, and you leave worse than you went in. Maybe it's time for you to go. Ah, you laugh. Communicates effectively in crisis situations. Whenever there's a crisis, it's part of the reason why Moses, found it necessary at a point in time when challenges faced him to just ask, he said, look, the God I know requires that we do things a certain way. And maybe as I look into this crowd and see the division, I'll have to ask you to make a choice. So he said, who is on the Lord's side? You come over here so that the rest of you can understand. You have to communicate effectively in a crisis situation and let people know where you stand. Participative management senses and understands the needs of others. You cannot do this by yourself. Builds, nurtures, and values relationships with others. Value people. Make them feel their self-worth when they come to talk to you. Don't be talking down to them and throwing them around as though they're things. And if everybody in your company is that dispensable, why aren't you working by yourself? Come on. Creates an environment that supports superior performance. And I'm coming back to it. I started off by saying that sometimes even the leader finds out that there's some people in the arena who can do things better than she or he. What you must do is support it. And I've always felt that when I see within my own ranks a person who has ability to do a certain thing, heaven forbid that envy and narrow-mindedness should make me keep that person pressed down. No, I'm not even saying that Christians don't do that. Decent people don't do that. Decent leaders don't do that. You help people to identify their strengths, and you begin to show them how they can maximize their potential. Believe me, it may not come around now, but later on it will come around, and you will see that you did the right thing. Process orientation recognizes linkages in seemingly unrelated events. One time when I became president of the then West Indies College, I looked into some offices and saw that there was no drape, no curtain. You can't have an office that don't look good. The reason you have to do that is that when a person on a university campus doesn't dress properly, wait, hear me out, sits in an office that looks like a fall coop, essentially what happens is that when you go out to raise funds from big organizations, one of the first things they begin to think is that they want my money to use to develop themselves. Look, even if where you work you're not getting what you need to get and what you deserve, for heaven's sake, look the part of the leader you are. Dress it, speak it, and I was going to say sometimes eat it, but if you don't eat it, if your lips are white, freshen them up and look the part, people, until something changes in your favor. People will not respect you if they feel that every move they make you're begging them something. I want to negotiate with you, but I must be left with my dignity. They're going to get me for this. Breaks down plans to connect processes, events, and structures to put into action. These are critical elements of leadership. Qualities of the principle-centered leaders, and there are only 2 or 3 slides, and then I'm done. Principle-centered leaders are service-oriented. In the final analysis, wherever it is you work, you can't be talking about what you work for and what you're not getting and what you're getting and stuff and stuff. There must be a point in time when you begin to talk about service. This is not just something that is true for church-based organizations. You have to have a sense of commitment, and you have to inspire people to give the best service. Optimistic, positive, and happy. You are the person in charge. When you walk amongst your workers and the people who answer to you, you must find a way to be upbeat. Come on, this is not a light matter. You have to find a way, and you have to be positive, and you have to wear that image. If you look lackadaisical and run down and tired and sorry, please don't be sorry. You take too many people down with you. When I come to the leader's office and I see my president looking like this, when I go back to my office, who can I inspire? I can't inspire anybody. Come on, people. That's one of the reasons why I tell people, and you will forgive me for this. Yesterday, President Brown and I were at a police function on the university campus. I have to tell you that I've been running some rough times, some rough hours, travels overseas, etc., etc., etc. But there's one thing that you will not see me do. I will not sleep on the platform. Let me tell you why I'm not sleeping. I am not sleeping up there because I don't want anybody to take a picture of the filling in my teeth. But do you know what it does to your congregants? Do you know what it does to your members? Do you know what it does to the people in your boardroom when a presentation is being made and the president is falling asleep? Nobody is saying that the president can't get tired, don't be foolish. But that is not the place to display it. Structure your time, take some time off, freshen up people, wash your face in the washroom, and come back looking ready, like you love what you're doing. Leadership is that too. Lead balanced lives. Lord knows that within our church organizations and some businesses, in fact, I heard some people preach about it and not calling any name. My children look to me to spend some time with them. I cannot keep on telling them that there's another committee meeting. I have to find time to spend with them. 2-3 months ago, I went to Florida, and my daughter invited me to the Dade County Fair. Let me tell you something. At my age, I do not belong on some of those rides. When a roller coaster is barreling down at 120 miles per hour, but my daughter and I are the ones at the fair. What do you want me to do? Tell her must go up and have a good ride? She said, but Daddy, you used to do this with me. And so I said, okay, I'll do this once. And once is all my heart could take. The point I make is that we must understand that in leadership there must be balance. We must find time for our families, for the people who are of worth to us, because you can't just do this after retirement. People will forget who you are. And no organization is supposed to require and demand of you that you give the business every minute. No problem. I'm on time. They see life as an adventure. Come on, there's the next thing. What does the strategic plan call for? What are we going to do the next time? They are change agents, team-oriented. Come on, people. The leader must be able to see what is going to be the next. And by the way, even the leader must see the finished product, Have you ever walked by some construction sites and have some people explain to you what they're building here? I have asked them, you're doing what? But in 4 to 5 months, when you pass there again and you see the magnificence and the beauty, then it begins to dawn on you that, oh, he knew what he was saying. A leader has to be able to see the future. And when people within his ranks or her ranks are feeling discouraged, you must be able to get them what? Upbeat and see what things are going to be like, people. And they exercise self-renewal. A leader exercises self-renewal. Some leadership imperatives: establish realistic priorities. I'm stopping after this. Be a person of integrity. Everything cannot be for sale. And if people are selling it, just let them know you're not buying it. It is one of the most fundamental points in the whole matter of leadership. It must be a stone wall when it comes to whether or not people can buy and sell you. Because trust me, I have told people, you know, there are some people that you will not. I am not borrowing anything from the people who work with me. You know why? Because you must not sit in a room where I, as a leader, need to take a firm decision and you come to remind me of what I borrowed from you. I do not want it. If I want to borrow, I go to the bank. Be able to recognize a problem before it becomes what? An emergency. You must be able to look and see and deal with the thing. And one of the challenges we have in business sometimes is that we see a problem, but we do not deal with the problem. And then it becomes a catastrophic emergency. And all of us are embarrassed. Cultivate good attitudes. Be a people developer. Want to make people better. And then exercise a certain level of self-discipline. I just say the price tag for leadership is self-discipline. There is a spot beyond which I cannot go because I am the one in charge for the time being. And sometimes I want to remind people that you have to find ways to make people move when seemingly there's no energy. I went to a university graduation in California some 3-4 years ago. And the vice provost for Ohio State University, who was once a president of Oakwood College, was delivering the commencement address. And he said when he was a child, a little boy, he and his brother followed their grandfather to the farm. And the grandfather carried the one old mule called Jojo. And you know what a dray is? Some of you who would be too young for that. That's the big thing that you put behind there and you pack it up with stuff. And they said, when the grandfather carried out the mule that morning, the mule had on blinders. That leather thing that they put in. And he said the grandfather loaded the dray and loaded, so much so that as little kids they started to wonder, Jojo will not be able to carry these things. Why is grandfather doing this? And then when the mule was supposed to move, the grandfather said, come on, sit up here. Sat on the dray, called up the two boys, and they sat on the dray too. And then the grandfather said, listen to me carefully, giddy up, Markham. Giddy up, Johnny. Giddy up, Bo. Giddy up, Jojo. And when he said Jojo, the name of that mule, the mule took off up the hill with the dray piled high with all the things. And one of the little boys said to his grandfather, grandfather, why did you call the names of so many different mules when it was only Jojo that was here? To which the grandfather answered, if Jojo knew he was doing this alone, he would never have moved. Leadership must inspire. Find it somewhere. Thank you.
We were certainly inspired. We were taken to the mountaintops by Dr. Thompson's presentation. Would you agree with me? Dr. Thompson, when I listened to you, I thought about rural gumption. I thought about Jamaica rebuilding the walls. And the content of your presentation says to me that we should expect a book on leadership soon. And I'm saying this publicly because I'm encouraging you so that when the book is out and things begin to flow, you'll remember that I gave you public encouragement.
Well, one of the things I'd like to do is to assure the pastor that his royalty is certain. Your 5%, with this kind of encouragement, your 5% is a certainty. And but the fact is that I do have a book now that is being read entitled In Praise of a Practical God. The reason I did that was that I wanted to write a book on the fact that the distinction that some people seem to want to make between God and business, or worship and the practice of what we do for everyday living, is really not there. God is intermingled and involved in all our everyday lives. That is what we referred to in school years ago as Christianity in working clothes. And that's it. So that book is being read, and I hope then after that, then I look at the other one.
Indeed.
Right.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are happy to be joined by two panelists, and it gives me pleasure to introduce both of them. Miss Sidian Brady, she's a member of the Braeton Seventh-day Adventist Church, and Mr. Ian Gardner, a member of the Waterford Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm going to ask both panelists to tell us in just a 30-second bite each, what about the presentation that really stands out for you?
All right. Dr. Thompson, very good presentation, very enlightening. I enjoyed it thoroughly. One of the things that stood out was one of the first sentences you made. Leadership is the ability to lead others successfully. And that's what defines leadership. And I realized in your presentation you went on to expound on how this can be done. And in a lot of it you spoke about being a visionary, taking responsibility, and being able to communicate what you envision to others and inspire them to achieve this. And you went on, you highlighted this using your core competencies, innovative, transformation, etc. And I guess later on I'll get to ask my questions, but based on that sentence, leadership being the ability to lead successfully, I thoroughly enjoyed the way you presented the information that you brought to us.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Thompson, I think it was a very informative and inspiring presentation. And the theme that continues throughout is the importance of being people-focused, very critical to leadership. And when you highlighted the different competencies, it was clearly seen that if the leader is not focused on the people and inspiring people, then it would not be possible for the leader to be successful. Another very important point I recognized is leaders should have the courage to accept the responsibility of the results that come through their leadership. And I think that is a very important point, because as human beings generally, we do not want to be associated with failure. We are quick to project, to blame others. And I think that that point, having been emphasized, is very critical, and we should look seriously at that. It takes some degree of courage and integrity to accept responsibilities even when the end result is not what we expected.
Thank you very much. As Dr. Thompson spoke, I thought for a moment that if he were prophesying, then we would quickly agree that he's a prophet sent from God, because many of the things he was talking about were being fulfilled on me as a leader. Even as you made your presentation, taking responsibility even for things that you are not the one assigned to do, but guess what? As a leader, you're in charge and you're responsible. So a very insightful presentation. And I want to ask our panelists at this time to share with us any thought, question you would like for Dr. Thompson to respond to.
All right, I guess I'll go first. Dr. Thompson, in light of the information that you've given to us, do you believe that we are born leaders, or it's something that can be cultivated?
I once read a quotation from the short-statured Napoleon Bonaparte. One of the things they said about him was that he had the ability to make his armies feel hopeful, even when they were walking into a death trap. The fact is that you have to be able to inspire the persons for whom you have charge. And if the truth be told, because leadership is something that in many instances many of us are not trained for, you really have it thrust upon you. After an election, for example, you are in charge. And one of the things we have to learn to do is to go find the experts, do the reading, expose ourselves to where the knowledge is, and get it, so that we can deliver. And you know, I don't know if that answers. Was there another part of the question that?
It answers the question, because you are saying that once we are in a position, it's not that it's something you're born with, but something that you can train yourself or seek out.
And that's the point. I wanted to make certain that I was staying on course. The fact is that, you know, what you don't have, in my presentation I talk about the fact that the leader must exercise an element of curiosity, and you must want to learn more. And today you may find out that you're weak in a particular area, but you must go find where the skills are. And sometimes you have to sit at somebody else's feet. If you take what is happening in information technology in the world today, you find yourself in a church where you're the pastor, but the big old books with membership, where you used to pull down the membership book and dust off the thing from the shelf and see that page 27 was missing from the last board meeting, those things have really gone out with the twist. You must be able to open a laptop or a desktop in front of you and look at the updated version, and so the person who tore out page 26 may have done that in the book on the shelf, but he can't do that where you're storing it, because you have it on your desktop. It is hidden in a file someplace that she can't find it. Well, it's not she, he. But the leader has got to be on the cutting edge, and whatever it takes to establish yourself as a competent leader, you're just going to have to do it.
Thank you so much. Ian, is there a question you'd like to ask Dr. Thompson?
Yes, Dr. Thompson. As a leader, you are charged with the responsibility to realize certain objectives by leading a group. You have expended financial resources, material resources, you have invested heavily in human resources, and the end result is failure. Failure measured against the background of the objectives that were set out to be realized. How does the leader bounce back from this very negative and discouraging experience?
Well, I want to say, let me say two quick things. One, since you've heard it cliched, it's been said, leaders are not made, they're born. I don't know about that. I didn't want to say that when I was answering your question, because one of the things I try not to do is not to go the route of what everybody else says. My point is that whatever you need to do, you get it done. I have said to some people that you can sit there and talk about the fact that Moses was such a bad man when he used his rod to strike the rock. Most of the leaders today that I know, including myself, wouldn't be using that rock to strike, that rod to strike any rock. I would just leave that.
Thank you.
But no, come on, let us be serious. But I can tell you this: the leader is going to have to find a way to bounce back by saying to his board, her superiors, look, I experimented with this and I thought it was going to give me a certain result. It didn't quite work. I am asking you for another chance to prove myself. However, people, if when you get that second chance, as you look at the tally of things as they're coming together and see that things are not working out, do not burden a board with the responsibility of relieving you. Do the honorable thing, because that too is leadership.
Thank you.
Let them know that their luck is and tender your resignation. It is better to be called back to give it a third try than for them to say, you're not getting a third try at this. It's the kind of stuff. It's what you have to do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson. We have time for just one question from a member of the audience, and if there is someone with a question, please indicate by raising your hand. I will acknowledge you, and you will be directed to the area from which Pastor Brown. We have our conference president, and of course we will be providing him with a microphone as he asks his question. Go ahead, sir.
Brother Gardner skirted around the question that I'm about to ask. And Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for your presentation. How does a leader get people to buy in?
All right, thanks.
Rather to support his ideas or goals, to own exactly where he's going and to be a part of the process.
You know, Pastor, colleague, ladies and gentlemen, I have come to learn that one of the hallmarks of successful leadership is to be at the level where your people are working. When people talk about the successful concept of management by walking around, part of it has to do with the fact that if you want to motivate and positively drive people, you must be able to identify with what they are doing. People have said, and truly so, that you have to be a good follower before you can be a good leader. And one of the things about a good leader is that he must know where his people are or where they have been. And one of the ways to do that is to be at the level where they are. So I went down one time, to the main gate when we were rushing to put in traffic lights to have the opening of the university and stuff like that, the launch. And I saw a guy, a handyman, using a shovel, but a shovel, yeah. My brother is back there, and he can tell you that of us 17 children, and yes, maybe he didn't tell you, but there are 17 of us. I'm sorry, husband, I just told them. Really, there was nothing too rough and tumble for us to be told by our dad that you must learn to do it. I took the guy out of the trench because every time the shovel came up out of that thing, I saw a few little pebbles, and I was saying, "You hungry?" And it is not that I wanted to show him up or anything, but I went down there, and honestly, if you want to take up a full shovel of dirt, you scrape it up and gather it. You don't just skim and throw and skim and throw. So I threw out about 3 or 4 full shovel loads. And then they were around. They said, "Doc, but you can do this." I said, "Yes, I can. I can." And when he went back down in there, you trust me, whether it was to make certain that I didn't embarrass him anymore, But man, he started heaving them shovels and some stuff started coming out because we were trying to meet a deadline. The point I make is that the leader must be able to identify with what is to be done, what needs to be done, and the people whom you lead need to know that you understand. Do you know what it does when people are working, you don't see the meal coming on time, and you go there, bring a snack or bring a jug with water or drink, and you start serving people just a little plastic glass? It energizes them to the extent that no glass of drink was supposed to, but it was because it is the person in charge who brought it. There is something to be said for when, and that is how you get your team to work with you. Trust me, I have long learned that some of the things that people used to do with memoranda, come on, and inter-office memorandum, and you know, get up and go talk to the people yourself and you would be amazed. It makes an enormous difference. I didn't just hear that he said so. He came here and said so, and in fact, I don't see, but he's someplace in the crowd. You may disappear after they've taken your picture. One of the things I found. But the fact is that you were there. Finally, I will simply say that there are some events, you know, that I want to identify with when people are asked to do tough things. And one of the things I do as a leader is that when I go in there, I go up front. I'm not just going to go to the back and leave. I want you to see me. Because it makes a difference when you're seen. And stuff. And so that is how you drive and motivate and embrace the concept, and although the job be difficult, so that you can get your people to move with you. That's the concept of buy-in. That's the concept of buy-in.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson. Thank you, panelists. We trust and hope that you'll continue to be inspired by these thoughts that came to you today. And we hope that having put these things into practice, indeed, you will all become better leaders in your different spheres of endeavor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Jesus, listening when you pray. King Jesus, listening when you pray. Waiting to hear you, comfort and share you. King Jesus, listening when you pray. King Jesus, listening when you pray. King Jesus, listening when you pray. Waiting to hear you, comfort and share you. King Jesus, listening when you pray. If I hold my peace, my Jesus will be coming for me one day. King Jesus, listening when you pray. He's got power in his hands and he's taking me away. King Jesus, listening when you pray. If I hold my peace, my Jesus will be coming for me one day. King Jesus, listening when you pray. He's got power in his hands and he's taking me away. King Jesus, listening when you pray. Whoa, whoa, whoa. King Jesus, listening. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Listening when you pray. He's got power in his hands and he's taking me away. King Jesus, listening when you pray. In Jesus' name.